Controversial question, especially here in France, it must be said, about social movements, feminism, anti-racism, and the fight for LGBTQ rights. Are these movements universal, or should they be broken down into smaller sub-movements to better address the intersectional nature of oppression? Well, in her latest book, African Feminisms, University of Edinburgh professor Rama Dieng considers what it means to be a feminist specifically in Africa today through a series of interviews with activists across the continent. She joins me now for Perspective. Professor Salla Dieng, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So can you talk first about your book? What were some of the most striking testimonies for you to come out of it?
This book is a series of interviews with 15 African feminists from Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Ghana, many countries on the continent and in the diaspora, including France. So the most striking issues that have been discussed is the centrality of self-care, for instance. And when I talk about self, it doesn't mean I don't have this individual definition of self-care, because in Africa, the self is, a community. So centering self-care, centering mental health. Also, if we were to find a subtitle for this book, it would be discussing the politics and poetics of knowing, organizing, and loving. So I'm asking them about the complementarity between digital and more traditional means that they use to organize, whether it is social media, whether it is campaign strategies, meeting, gathering, networking. And as you know, for some of these organizations or collectives, with the lack of funding, the digital offers new avenues for organizing. So one of the most striking themes as well is the centrality of sorority and having this intersectional approach to organizing. Because when we talk about the LGBTQI community in Ghana, for instance, or we talk about feminist organizing in Ghana, Senegal, we have to also take into consideration the specific environment in which these contexts or social movements take place. So having this intersectional approach allows us to understand the intersection of whether it is inequalities or privileges, whatever it is. So it allows us to really understand what is at play.
Here in France, Professor, there's a constant debate about universal values, this idea that anti-racism is humanism, feminism is humanism. What makes Afrofeminism different than Western feminism?
One of the interviewees is Mamfatou Niang, who just wrote a book on universalism with Julien Ciodo. So I think it is timely to have this debate. Why do we talk about African feminisms? As I just said, there is the place from which we talk matters, because we need to take in consideration situated knowledges and situated dynamics of power. And that's what African feminists are organizing against patriarchies, organizing against privileges and sexism and capitalism and all this. So when we talk about, for me, when I see humanism or when I see this concept of humanism, I always worry what there is to hide, who is not able to speak, who is, whose voice is not represented in this humanism, because not all of us are seen as equal citizens, whether it is in France or whichever country you might name. There are always individuals who are not taken into consideration from mainstream debates and mainstream discourses. And that's what this book does. It does bring a feminist intersectional dimension to understand who is most privileged, who is most discriminated against. And that's the value of having this intersectional approach rather than a humanist one, in my opinion.
So there's Afrofeminism, which is distinct from Western feminism, or maybe Latin American feminism, or whatever else. But your book puts African feminism in the plural, African feminisms. So what what different forms of feminism on the continent can we find? Is it based on different nationalities, religions, ethnicities?
It is based on the different political economies and ecologies that engendered them. So when you talk about Francophone Africa, for instance, compared with Anglophone African countries, there are cultural dynamics at play, of course, but there are also the fact that some issues are not discussed as much. When we talk about Senegal recently, we have seen a resurgence of anti-feminist movement, like the anti-LGBTQ bill. We have also the law, as in Ghana, the law, the anti-LGBT law. So there is a tendency to want to give up, or to want for women to go back in centuries later from what we have acquired through fight and so on. So when we talk about this, when we have this approach, we are also centering, as I just mentioned, the voices that are not taken into consideration. So regarding the ideologies, as in any country, we have radical feminists, we have liberal feminists who center on individual rights, and we also have socialist feminists. We have new wave, the fourth wave of young feminists organizing through social media and so on. We have the Afrofuturist or Afropolitan voices of feminism. So feminism is, this book shows the heterogeneous nature of feminism in Africa right now. And it simply states that there are as much feminisms that there are of feminists in Africa. And what matters is our power to overcome those differences and to organize together for the collective good.
Professor, that is unfortunately all the time we have for today. But thank you so much for coming on the show. As a reminder, her book, Féminismes, Africains, is published in French.
Thank you so much for having me.